presentation. And there we go. Welcome, BobbyKountz, to the Zoomathon for the Philanthropreneur Foundation. It is my pleasure to have you join us today. And Bobby, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be here. And first, I'd like to extend my gratitude to Al Jensen for making this opportunity available, because had he not made the introduction to you, then I simply wouldn't be here. But because of that, and it was very kind of you to hear, to hear you speak fondly of Al earlier as well, and all of those who are part of the speaking group. We appreciate what both Al and George are doing for the community. And Dr. Boyd, it looks like you're doing something spectacular for the community as well. So it's
Thank
an
you.
absolute honor to be here. So actually in the corporate world. I work for a pharmaceutical company, but that's not what I'm excited about. That's not what I'm passionate about. What I'm passionate about is people, and I'm passionate about my community, and I'm passionate about the community at large, the overall community. So I hope my message today will be one of inspiration. I hope that it will help you understand that one day at a time, anything is possible. What did you say? What? Are you kidding me? What did, that's the question. That's the question my mind was asking my mouth. Have you ever had your mind talk to your mouth? I know mine does on a regular basis. My mind was trying to understand what my mouth had just said. It was still trying to wrap itself around this thing that I had just agreed to do. As a matter of fact, I remember it saying, "You're going to do what?" Have you ever said yes to something and then asked yourself, why did I do that? Why did I say yes to that? Well, that's what I'd done. And my mind was trying to understand what my mouth had gotten us into. And the what? What had my mouth gotten me into? Well, how about a 192-mile ride, a 2-day ride across the entire state of Massachusetts? Now, if you're wondering why my mind was trying to figure out what my mouth had said, maybe it was because I wasn't a cyclist. Not only was I not a cyclist, I didn't even own a bike. I hadn't ridden 1.92 miles, let alone 192 miles, and I had absolutely no idea how I would ever do this thing that I had just agreed to do. Also, for sake of conversation, it might be good to know that I was probably at least 20 pounds heavier than I probably should have been to undertake something as monumental as a 192-mile ride across the country. So obviously, my brain was having a really hard time with what my mouth had agreed to. But it's interesting. When you say yes to something, the universe has a way of kind of standing up behind you. The universe has a way of supporting us in something that we don't even think is possible for ourselves. And it usually comes in the most simple of formats. Now, let me ask all of you, have you ever had something really simple come your way and then you said, well, it can't be that easy. There's no way it could be that simple. Well, that's what my mind was doing as well, because when they told me what the philosophy was, when they told me what the philosophy of how people did this crazy thing that they had no idea they were going to be able to do, it was so simple that our mind doesn't want to say it can't be that easy. And what's that philosophy and how simple is it? Commit. You'll figure it out. I was like, what? What do you mean commit, you'll figure it out? They're so proud of it that they have a t-shirt that says it. Look at that. Commit, you'll figure it out. That's the motto. That is the motto of the Pan Mass Challenge, pmc.org, one of the largest athletic fundraisers in the country and an event that my company was involved with at the corporate level. Now, you know, there's so few details that go along with that initial invitation that came, and they're probably not overly important, but what is important is to understand that it all started with a text. It began with a simple text. I'm sure that every single one of you at some point in time has received a text from somebody that said, hey, there's this really cool event going on, you should come do it. Well, maybe not lately you haven't, because I think they've kind of taken some of that away from us, haven't they? Or at least this COVID crisis thing's taken some of that away from us. But back in the day, back in 2014, for me, I think it was, when that text came through, it was just a simple text from a couple of colleagues inviting me to come do something that I didn't think could be possible. And I started asking questions. Well, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And how do you, and on and on and on. And I wanted all the details. And they were just like, Bobby, what's the motto of the Pan Mass Challenge? We already shared it with you. Commit. You'll figure it out. Well, that sounds good in theory, right? And what I actually discovered, it's not commit, you'll figure it out. It's commit, then figure it out. You have to make the commitment, because we can't ever do anything we've never done before without saying yes to it. Now, I think there might be, I don't know, half a dozen, maybe more individuals on this particular call who've had to completely rework their businesses. With a show of hands, could you show me? Put your hands up and show me if you had. Yeah, so maybe even more than I thought, right? Maybe even more than I thought about how you've had to pivot, how you've had to say, well, what would happen if I got curious instead? And isn't curiosity a superpower? Right? I mean, think about it. How did all of the great things that have been done by human beings over all the years, how did they all get done? How did that happen? Well, I would submit that there were probably some people sitting around, maybe even two brothers from a bicycle shop, and they thought, wow, it would be really cool if we could fly, don't you think? And they had a small obstacle. It wasn't really, I mean, not a major, not a monumental obstacle. Well, I guess gravity? No, gravity is not a big deal, right? I mean, so what if the Wright brothers, just think about this for a minute. What if the Wright brothers had said, I don't know about that gravity thing, that's probably too much for us to overcome. Think about how different the world might be if they'd allowed that challenge to get in their way, right? They didn't know how to do what they were going to do, but they had an idea and they took action on that idea. And that's what happened for me when I said yes to the Pan Mass Challenge. But I still had to figure out, how am I going to go from where I am to where I need to be? How am I going to get there? How am I going to get ready? How am I going to do the training? Where am I going to find a bike? Where, what? All these questions just flooded my mind. And then it took me back to another time. It took me back 24 years when I stood at the crossroads, when I had a really, really important decision to make. On the 4th of July, 1990, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I made the decision to give up alcohol and to give up cigarettes. I made a decision that I would never drink again. I had no idea how I was going to do it. To say I was unsure would be a complete and total understatement. You see, from the time I had been 15 to that time, alcohol had been a huge part of my life. I started drinking to fit in with the kids in the neighborhood. My parents had brought me to Las Vegas, and they plopped me down in a trailer park with a bunch of people that I didn't know, and I didn't fit in. I wasn't even from the same trailer park the kids were hanging out in. So what I did is, when we were sitting at the park where the pool was, and someone offered me some Southern Comfort, I said yes. That decision changed my life too. It put me on a path of destruction and a road I hope no one ever has to go down. But at the end of every road, or on the road somewhere, there's a crossroads. There's a place where you get to choose which direction you want to go. And the direction I chose for myself was sobriety. And I knew the only way it would ever happen for me would be one day at a time. Well, I didn't actually know that, but that's what they told me. And just like that motto for the Pan Mass Challenge, just like they said, if you'll take this thing on one day at a time, you'll be able to get through this. I thought, well, could it be that simple? Could it be that simple, one day at a time? And think about our lives for a minute, right? Don't we do everything that we do one day at a time? Can you change anything about yesterday? You can't. It's in the past. It's history. It's behind us. Now, can you advance yourself into tomorrow and do something tomorrow that you want to do today? Nope. Can't do that either. You know why? Because tomorrow is kept for us. We have a 24-hour cycle. In any given 24-hour day, in any given 24-hour period, we get to decide what we want to get from the day. And once I realized that, once I understood that, with a team of individuals behind me, just like the team that I had for the Pan Mass Challenge, I figured out how to do everything that I needed to do to get me up to that point in time, 24 years later, when I said yes to the Pan Mass Challenge. Now, it wasn't easy. I assure you it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it. And I have since written a book that I launched to celebrate my 30th anniversary, 30 years clean and sober on the 4th of July of this year. Thank you so much for, I see the people in the background giving me the high fives and a lot of smiles. And what I want you to understand, what's so simple about all of this, we're in this crisis right now, something we've never experienced before, something no one ever could have anticipated. No one could have planned. No one would have thought. As a matter of fact, if you started telling people now all the details about what your daily life looks like, if you were telling somebody that 6 months ago, they would look at you like you were absolutely crazy. They would look at you the same way my mouth was trying to have a conversation with my mind, or my mind was having a conversation with my mouth, however that worked. You understand what I'm saying? They would look at you like there's just no way. That would be impossible. But what I want all of us to understand is that in any given 24-hour period, that's the only amount of time we have to get through. You don't have to worry about getting through tomorrow. And you don't have to worry about what happened yesterday. You can't change that. It's in the past. Just for today. 3 words that are super, super powerful. I think you guys probably get by now that I like simple stuff, right? One day at a time. Commit. You'll figure it out. Just for today. Simple, simple strategies. I find that simple works. And what you'll find in my book, The Someday Solution, are simple strategies to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, not someday, but today. I want to thank all of you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This was a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity, and I am so incredibly grateful. Thank you so much.
Okay, now that I'm unmuted, are there any questions? I mean, that was such a inspirational, moving, engaging, and energizing. You'll know why I'm saying all those terms later. Any questions? Let me see. I'm scrolling through it.
Yes, this is Denise, and
Okay.
I first of all, congratulations on your sobriety, and
Thank you.
it's great that you're using that experience to help others. And can you put in the chat the link to get your book?
Absolutely, I will. And thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate it. I was kind of just trying to follow suit. I noticed that each of the speakers, as they're doing their presentation after they finish, they're putting their information into the chat. So I just wanted to kind of try to follow suit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want everybody to do. Anything, handouts, anything, please put it in the chat, because it becomes a permanent document that I have all the time, and people tend to really follow that chat box in terms of gathering information. Are there any other questions? Just unmute yourself if you have one, because I'm not seeing all of them, because I have Bobby as my spotlight speaker here.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know, Bobby. Bobby, I'm on my exercise bike right now. I've been a bike rider. I've been a bike rider my whole life, literally, and I've done lots of big challenges. But you have accomplished so much. Your sobriety, your bike rides, what you do for your job, and how dedicated you are. But, you know, for a lot of people, that's enough. But you chose to take it another step further. What would you say was the biggest inspiration that you had to write this book and share this with people?
Yeah. So I have to be honest, I was afraid. I was afraid for such a long time to share this story. And what I understood finally when I was actually in the editing phase of writing this book, and this is a true story. My editor said to me, I like chapter 2, but it's not right. You didn't tell your story. Your story's not in there. Your story will help thousands, maybe even millions of people. You need to tell your story. You need to share your story with the world. She said, and if you don't help thousands, it doesn't matter. She says, because if you help just one, then won't that have been worth it? And I said, you're right. Why have I been so afraid my whole life to tell my story? So it was a process of overcoming my fear and wanting to be of service. Now, there's an interesting quote, and those of you that know me know I love quotes. Rory Vaden, who wrote the book Take the Stairs, and he runs a very successful company, his favorite phrase about engaging with an audience, engaging with people, about helping others, is it's hard to be nervous when your heart is on service.
Beautiful.
Right? How true is that? And speaking for me, believe it or not, was difficult until I made that transition. That why do I have to be nervous? I'm just showing up to serve other human beings with my own personal message about how their lives can be different and better. What do I have to be nervous about? And that changed everything for me.
Well, thank you so much, because I'm on chapter now and I'm loving it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the question.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because I'm going to shut down the recording here. And thank you so much, Bobby, for being a part of what we're doing here for Zoomathon.